What's up guys? So in this video I'm going to show you how to add rate limiting to your API. And adding rate limiting to your API is really crucial if you are building production apps and you want to prevent user from spamming your endpoint, especially if you are using serverless functions. So rate limiting your project is one of the ways to not go poor when building your web application. I have also written an article about it. Link will be in the description. Without further ado, let's dive right into the video. So before we start writing code, I just want to explain what rate limiting is for anyone that is hearing it for the first time. So basically, rate limiting is a strategy or a process to control the amount of requests that is being sent to a server, in your case, your server. So imagine you have a big website with many API endpoints. So without limits, a single user could just overload your server with thousands of requests per second. And if you are wondering that nobody could ever overload your server with tons of requests, I can tell you for a fact that this is the internet and people are mean. So that being said, this can cause performance issues, or it can even lead to downtime. So rate limiting places a cap on how many action or requests a user can perform in a specific time window. So basically now let me just get rid of this. So let me just share a high level overview of what we'll be doing. So let's say we have a user right here. Let's say this should be user, and I will just duplicate this and this be your server. And let's say the user is making a post request to your server. This can still be a get request. We'll see an implementation of both in a minute. So I just call this request. Maybe the user is trying to submit a form or something else. So we'll say request. So if rate limiting is not being implemented, this particular user, if they are not a good person, can write a script to just spam your server by submitting different data. So you can send bunch of requests. But if rate limiting is in place, you can protect your API or your server and say this particular user can just make, let me do this, let's just say they can just make just 2 requests. Then if they try to make another one again, then there should be like a guard to stop that user from making more requests to your server for a particular period of time. And you can track that by using the user ID or the user IP address. So basically, the amount of requests you set on your server with the rate limiting per minute would depend on the amount of requests the user can make. So I guess you have a basic knowledge on how rate limiting works. So let's jump onto VS Code and see a live example. Alright, so I have VS Code opened with a folder called rate limiting, and it's empty for now. So in this tutorial I'll be using Express. Maybe in my next video I'll show you how you can implement rate limiting on a Next.js project using a service like Upstash. So what I'm going to do is to first of all create 2 folders. I'll call this front end and I'll call this back end, if I can spell correctly. So I'll make sure I have both of them open right here. So I'll say cd front end, then I will create a new terminal. I'll say cd backend. Alright, cool. So I want them side by side. So what I'll just do, I'll just drag this right here, or I'll drag this one rather. Then I have the front end and the back end, but what I will do is just to cd again and cd front end right here. I'll cd back and cd into backend. All right, cool. So for the front end, we'll be using React. Then for the backend, we'll be using Express, which is a Node.js framework, and we'll be using the Express rate limit that will help us to protect our API from any requests. So right here, I'll just say npm create vite at latest, and I'm using vite as a build to not create React app. So this period sign basically means I'm creating it in this front end folder that is in this rate limiting folder. So I'll select React. Then this is just a simple project. I will just use JavaScript. Now I'll do npm install. While that installing, I will come right here and we'll initialize a package.json file by saying npm init, and we'll just accept everything. That's why. So if I open this right here, see the package.json file has been created. Then we'll also install some packages as well. So say npm install, then we'll install Express. Also use CORS because we want our front end to communicate with our back end. Then we'll bring in the Express rate limit. All right, so both are done installing. Then for the front end one, I'll just say npm run dev. While for the backend folder, what I'll do is I will install one more package, and this will be a dev dependency. The package is called NodeMon. So NodeMon basically allows our server to auto restart instead of me restarting it every time I make changes. It's supposed to be npm dash the NodeMon. All right, so we'll go to the front and back end in a bit, but let me just open this port right here. So leave this and paste this here. And let me just do some cleanup right here. So don't need this file. Just need this to be empty. I think that should do. Then for the app, get rid of everything and say rfc to spin up a JSS template. So all right, cool. So close this out. For the backend, what we'll do is I'll come right here and create a server.js file. So this can be whatever you want it to be. And I will come to the package.json file, and first of all, we'll be using import and not require. So for us to do that, we have to come here and change the type from common to module. And then we'll also, so to use NodeMon, we'll just come here and change this to dev, and we'll get rid of all this, and this should be NodeMon. Then we'll say this should be a server.js file. So when we run npm run dev is going to watch our file. So say npm run dev. So any changes we make to this file now, it's going to restart our server. All right, cool. So the first thing is to import Express from Express, and we want to initialize an Express app, so store that in a variable and call Express right here. And before we add the rate limiting stuff, I just want to set up a server quickly. So we'll create a port. This we'll call this port 5000. So next to do is want to set the endpoint. So we say, let me just accept this, and we can just specify, let me say this should be /API/data. Then this should have closing parentheses right here, and say this should be res.send. Let's just say learning rate limiting. All right, cool. So we want to listen for this port right here. So say app.listen, say to the port, think this is fine. All right, so our server is running on this port right here. So this is just a basic way of setting up an Express app. Now we need to communicate with this endpoint and actually grab this data. So you will do that using a tool like Postman, but since we have React, we'll just use what we have. And I forgot to add a package, so this is optional though, but I use Axios, so I'm going to install it. If you don't want to, you can just using the inbuilt fetch API. So clear this out and start my server again. All right, cool. So I'll import Axios from Axios. Then I basically want to store the response that I will be getting inside the stage. So say this should be response, say set response, and the default value will be null. Then I'll also add a error state as well. It should be error. Now I will just create a fetch data function. I'll add a try catch block. So try catch. So this will have error. Get back to this in a minute. So inside the try block, what we'll do is to set the error to null, so that it resets the error before making a request. Then we want to actually get this right here. So I will just accept this because it's what we need. Now we'll have to store this response in this set response state, and also append the message as well. Then for the error state, do the same thing and say set error, and it should be error the response data. I don't know if this is but we'll leave. I don't know if we really need this, but we'll leave it. If we don't need this, we'll know in a minute. All right, cool. So we want to use this fetch data somewhere. So in our case, get rid of this one, and we won't be styling anything. So I will just say, let me just add an H1 and say this one should be rate limiting. And I'll just create a button and say when we click on the button, we want to call the fetch data. So say this should be let's say fetch data from server. Then we want to store the response and also get the error. But right here, I'll just say this should be server response. For the error, we'll say error. Display response correctly. Cool. All right, so let's test it out to see if it's working. So nothing works. Everything is cool. Oh, okay. I guess this should be data, just data. And we've not added the calls. So let's test it out one more time. This shouldn't work, but okay. For some reason it worked. But we're supposed to add the calls, so regardless, we just do it. So import calls and say calls. Alright, I'll just say app.use and pass in calls right here. So let's refresh and do that again. So if I keep fetching the data from the server, I'm actually getting this double many times, but I can't simulate this in real time. So you can see that this is actually fetching many times. So we want to prevent the user from making a bunch of requests and just getting this data as many times as they want, as they choose to. So what we'll do is that we'll go back right here and we'll bring in the rate limit from express rate limit. So what we want to do is we want to set up like a rate limiter so that the user can be able to make a certain number of requests in a period of time. So in our case, we just limit each IP address to 5 requests per minute. So I will create a limiter variable, and inside it I'll call the rate limit method and pass in an object, and this object will have a window ms, which basically means how long the window should remember the request. So I'll accept this to be 15 minutes. Then the max is the number of requests, so set this to 5, or you can set this to the number you can set it to any number you choose to. Then for the message, so we just accept this message, and this message is a 4 to 9 message, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check that. Yeah, so it's a 4 to 9 error message, as you can see right here. All right, so basically this is just it. So what you have to do right now is to use this limiter. So there are different ways to do it. If we apply it right here and say app.use and we pass in the limiter, it's going to apply to all the endpoints. But if you need it for a specific endpoint, you can just pass in the limiter right here. So let's just assume we want to apply this to all the endpoints. So we'll go back and watch. Let me refresh this. So by the time we make more than 5 requests within 15 minutes, we should have that 4 to 9 error message. So let me just click this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So on the 6th clicked, we got this too many requests. So whatever you do within this period, you'll have this too many requests message. So that's for fetching data from a server. So let's talk about sending data to a server. So go back right here, and this time we'll start from the front end so that we'll have a clearer picture. And let's just get rid of this one. or should we get rid of it? I'll just leave it, and what I will do is we add a new state called form data and set form data, and this will be inside an object. I'll pass in 3 values, so the name will be an empty string, the email will be an empty string, then the message also be an empty string. So I'm just adding these properties to this form data state that will be updating later. So I'll get rid of this, and right here I'll get rid of this one, and this should be inside the form. And let me just put the div right here. Once again, we're not looking at style. I think I should just get rid of this, and should be name, the input, we'll have a type of text, then we'll add the name attribute and set it to name. Then for the value, set it to the form data dot name. Then on change, when we change, we'll call this handle input change that will create in a minute. Then what I will do is to copy this down 2 times, and this should be for the email, and this should be for the email as well. Should be email, and this should be message, and this should be text area this time, and we don't need type for text area, and the type here should be email. Then for the name, we'll set it to message. This as well, we'll set it to message. So before the form closes, we'll just press on the button, and this should be a type of submit. I'll say this should be submit, and let's just store the response state as well. So it should be response and error as well. So I'll call this again server response, and error. Cool. So we've now created this handle input change. I will also need a handle submit function as well. So for the handle input state, so I meant handle input change. So it's going to take an event, and what we'll do is to destructure the name and value and store it on this our set form data function. So we say set form data, and we'll spread over the form data, and the name, basically this is just like a key value pair. So basically we set the name, this name to whatever the value is, this name to whatever the value is. Then for the handle submit, I think that's what I called it, this would be an async function. Yeah, I'm going to tab this because this is what we want. So we'll prevent the default behavior, and this time let's just change this to something like form data. So save this. So first of all, import a body parser to, it should be parser from body parser. This will enable us to handle the form data, and we'll come right here and say app.use, and we want to just say body parser.json. This would be the method right here. Cool. So this will help us to pass the form data that is being sent to the server. We'll leave this as it is. Then this time, instead of us using it for all the routes, let me just demonstrate it. I'll get rid of it and make sure this API route is the same. I think we call it form data. check again, form data, then we just pass in the limiter right here. So this will only apply to this route. Then get rid of this, and we want to destructure. This should be from the body, not from query. So I'm destructuring the 3 parameters from the form data, and let's just set the response, and let's just say it should be message, and we'll say form has been submitted successfully. And let's just console log these values out. So say okay, this works. Okay, what's is this error? Okay, it was when we were testing bringing this stuff in. So we refresh, and so I will just fill in some data right here. So submit it, and there's an error, say post PI form data not found. All right, this should be post and not get. This should be post right here. So let's try this again. Submit. So the error says objects are not valid as React. Found object message. So let's see. Okay, let me see my server again. Okay, so this should be message. My bad. So let's try this again. So now we're getting it. So form has been submitted successfully. So let's submit again. So when we get to the max value of 5 requests, you can see that now we can't submit to our server again. So let me refresh, try that one more time. See that it says too many requests from this IP, please try again after 15 minutes. Alright guys, so that is a mini crash course on how rate limiting works. Do well to leave any questions in the comment section, and like I said, I will try to make a follow-up video on how to implement rate limiting to a Next.js project. Till next time, and remain blessed.